Hey, friends.
Hello.
We are back with another episode of our series talking about the Acolyte.
Yeah, it's
We
review.
were talking about episode 4 of the season of the Acolyte. We don't know if
Hmm.
there's going to be multiple seasons yet. So
Yeah,
I'm just going to keep saying season 1 to commit to the bit.
do
So,
it. Season
yeah.
one, season one of Acolyte, episode 4, titled "Day." You know what
Felt
happened in this
like not a
episode?
lot happened in this
A lot
episode.
of walking.
There's a lot of walking and a lot of walking and a lot of
It's a Burt
walking.
I. Gordon film. A
A little
lot of
bit.
walking. We walked and then we stopped and we talked and then we walked some more and then we stopped and we touched some bugs we shouldn't have touched and then
Hmm.
we walked some more and then we stopped and made a life choice and then walked some more and then stopped and confronted, well, almost confronted things, and then the episode ended.
Yep.
That's basically what
Yeah.
happened.
To give a little more detail, specifically, May and Kamir
Yes.
landed on
Our Sith buddies.
Kofar. They're looking for Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, and Kamir is encouraging May that she should try to kill him without using a weapon, which it felt like he was being pretty pushy in his suggestions. And that kind of led into a theory that you had.
I've had this theory for 3 episodes now that Kamir is the dark. He's the master. He's the, I don't want to say Sith Lord, but he's the one with the red lightsaber and the helmet with teeth. I think it's him. And I've thought so since he showed up. I was like, oh, it's him. And I feel like that's, yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit more. Let's get a little bit
Sure.
further into the
Yeah,
synopsis
yeah,
first.
yeah. So that's kind of happening. At the same time, we see there's several Jedi Masters meeting in the temple,
Mm-hmm.
including a Jedi that we're a little bit familiar with outside of the series,
Yes. Um, Oop, I just lost his name for a minute.
Mundi,
Kayadi Mundi.
Kiadi Mundi.
Kayadi Mundi, who is notoriously a butthead. He's notoriously um, uh, the guy who says like the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years,
Hmm.
which has caused some controversy of him showing up, and being in this little group of people uh, talking about May and her training and all this stuff,
Hmm.
and it's causing
So
controversy,
there's a
but
couple layers to the
there's
controversy.
several layers,
First,
and that's okay.
in Legends, his species is supposed to only live like 60 to 70 years, right?
Yes,
But I think
that's
we need to be fair
Legends.
that Legends is not canon, and we don't have
It's
a canon
not.
age established.
We
So
don't have a canon age.
I know Legends is really cool. I grew up reading some of those books, so I get that that hurts a lot of people, but
It's disappointing, but that's okay.
it's not canon. And if Disney wants to be flexible in how they develop things and how the story unfolds, I think we should be fair to them in that.
Yeah. In another
The
universe, in the multiverse,
yeah.
in the multiverse, that happens.
The
But
other layer to
yeah,
this controversy is that he is the guy in the Phantom Menace who said the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years. And
yeah,
so, on the surface layer, if you don't think too hard about it, sorry if I'm ruffling any feathers with that, it seems like a contradiction that we have a series where the Sith are active, and then he doesn't believe that the Sith have existed for 1,000 years.
yes. But at this moment, he doesn't know that. He knows that that May has a master. They know that she's trained. Clearly, she's trained by somebody, so
Mm-hmm.
somebody is teaching her. But at this point, even in Legends, there were splinter groups of Jedi. We've already had Jedi confronting splinter groups of Force users,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody in the series has used the S word yet. Sith, it's a meta understanding that this is about the Sith. We as the audience understand that.
Yeah.
May understands that. And now at the end of this episode is the first time any other Jedi have seen the red saber. Nobody has seen him yet. Nobody has seen the red saber. So
Yeah. And we don't know what's going to
yeah,
happen in the rest of the series yet. The Jedi who have all
yeah.
seen that could die in the next episode, and
And
the Sith
then
guy could peace out
yeah.
and not be found by
And
the whoever comes to investigate.
yeah, and that opens up the other controversy about like what about like Plagueis and the rule of two thing. And I'm like, you watch Clone Wars, right? Like there were a lot more people with red lightsabers than just two people in that. Like it wasn't just Dooku and Sidious that had red sabers in
You had
Clone Wars. Ventress had two sabers.
You had Darth Maul. You
Yeah.
had Savage Opress.
Like several. We have lots more people who have red lightsabers who are called master by other people.
Yeah.
By acolytes, people under their tutelage, which is what an acolyte is.
Yeah. So this could be like an apprentice of Plagueis before Palpatine.
Could be, because Palpatine isn't alive yet.
And like the thing with the Sith is they're always trying to replace their master, right? So he could be training up someone to be his apprentice so that he could usurp power. Like we really don't know what's going on here.
And we know this is a thing, and even Palpatine had three apprentices before, and he went through them. They had their uses, and then he didn't use them anymore. Like that's exactly what this master is doing with May. Like it's very Sith behavior, and I think we also don't know the rest of the story yet.
Yeah. And I think we should not assume the worst and not assume that the people writing this don't know what they're talking about or that they're intentionally trying to retcon or troll.
No, I think
I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt until we know the full story.
Definitely
now, if we get to the end of it and there's glaring inconsistencies in the lore,
then we can talk
that's
about
a valid thing to criticize.
But at the end.
But we're halfway through the series.
And this episode was short.
Yeah, it felt very short.
And we're halfway through the season, and this episode was short.
Yeah, it was.
So there's a lot of explaining that still needs to happen.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about like the length of the episode, like that was a disappointment for me.
It was short. It was.
Yeah, it was 28 minutes. Like we got to the end and the credits rolled, and I was like, "That's it? That's all we're getting?"
Yeah, it was disappointing for an episode that didn't feel like a lot happened. A main thing that happened in this episode was that Osha started to express that she was sensing the Force more strongly. That's terrible phrasing, but more strongly than she had been.
More stronger.
It was coming back to her, and that's interesting. And it was interesting that she expressed that in the creepy bug. Oh, sorry, I totally whacked the microphone. She expressed that in the creepy bug things on the trees, which was interesting. That she clearly sensed them and like went to touch them, but no one else was reacting to them. They were just kind of like, "Don't touch those. Those look weird." But like it didn't seem like they were feeling them or sensing them through the Force. Maybe they were and didn't say anything. She strikes me as one who doesn't have the best.
I mean, it could be that she was sensing them, but she's not used to sensing that kind of thing.
It could have been like a curiosity thing.
To her.
I think also, it seems to me that the theory is that this show is playing with the Force dyad idea that was in the sequels, which makes sense with the twins, and they are stronger together. We have seen that. That was a big theme in the last episode. So I'm wondering if the Osha and May being close together is strengthening both of them.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Because they have not been in close proximity for 16 years, they said, something like that. And now they are. Yeah. And they have been multiple times now. So it's like it's reconnecting even through the Force before they even really are reconnecting physically and, talking to each other and stuff. So I thought that's kind of interesting. And I wonder if that it's very interesting. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. I am also totally fine if this is just kind of Osha's Mary Sue moment and she's like, I can figure it out again. And I'm like, cool. Because as far as we know, that's how it works. The Force just doing Force things. Because we don't know how it works. We don't know how it works. It's never explained. And that's okay. That's because it's a magic system. And that's fine. That's how it works. So I'm really interested to see how that develops. And I really liked, this is something I've heard a couple people disagree with, but I really liked it, and was May's turn. And it seems more consistent with her character, which I disagree. There's a couple of people who I've heard online saying like, this seems really inconsistent with her character. I disagree with that because, as we saw in the childhood episode last time, May is loyal to Osha. She wants them to be together at any cost. And she has been operating under kind of this depressed, angry umbrella that her sister is dead. The one person she dedicated her life to and would do anything for died. Now what? But now that she knows, Osha is alive, it takes her a day, maybe 2 days, to turn around and be like, I gotta go get my sister. I gotta go find her.
Yeah.
And it's very consistent because Osha is pretty well the opposite. Osha does not want to be with her sister. She is not loyal to her. She is loyal to herself and her independence and doing her own thing, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about like how her turn came about in the episode too, because I think they did it in kind of a cool way.
I thought so too. It was.
It's during part of the walking that we complained about a little bit.
I mean, the best part of the walking sequences were with May and Chimere.
Yeah. Chimere. However you say his name. Correct us in the comments.
Please.
But yeah, so they're walking together, and she's starting to express doubts about her mission. She's thinking like, I don't know if it's actually possible to kill a Jedi without using any kind of weapon, which kind of valid.
She's supposed to use the Force.
Well, yeah, but Jedi are so strong in the Force. Like she gets the sense that her mission is impossible, and I think she's probably not wrong. But
Chimere, no, I think she's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chimere is trying to convince her, like, you can do this. This is possible, which I think definitely lends evidence to your theory that he's really the Sith.
Even more than that is that the masked man. He tries convincing her in 3 different ways. He tries to encourage her as a friend. He tries to threaten her. And he then goes the route of, like, a lover. Because his last appeal to her is, like, I care about you. Like, you rest and you're why I'm here. Like, I'm doing this for you. Like, he's appealing to her strongest emotions. He appeals to her anger and encouraging her to inflame that anger and to keep it going. And then he needles her and that, like, he's going to kill you if you don't do this. So that's playing on her fear. And then he plays into aspect of love, of, I'm doing this for you, of passion. Yeah. So he's using, and that's the 3 main ways people fall to the dark side are fear, anger, and love.
Yeah.
Or passion. So that was it's him.
Yeah. And when she asked him, like, how do you know the master?
He avoids
he very quickly dodged the question and tried to give her no information.
Anytime he has asked a question about himself in any of the episodes he's been in, he has dodged it or just straight up lied.
So he's clearly got something to hide. Yeah. I think you're on the right track. I think you're right that he is going to be revealed to be.
I feel like this episode,
the Sith man.
I think this episode really was. Like, I feel like that was the point of this episode.
And then the other piece of evidence is that he, like, turns up so quickly. So, like, he was already there.
He's already there.
We know that Chimere was already there.
He went to get water.
Well, he got pushed into a trap by May.
Before that, he went to get water. That's when he came back and he got trapped. So he went to get water and then came back with water. I'm like, I think that's when he went and killed.
Yeah.
The Jedi.
Okay. Yeah. That's what you're. Yeah. Because when May. So May pushes him into the trap and runs off to go tell Kelnaka, like, hey, there's a Sith. You need to be aware of this.
And he's already dead.
And then he's already dead, and it was killed with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
So I think the evidence is all there. It all lines up. And I think you're right about that one.
It is.
Yeah, and then May gets there, has this realization, and then the Jedi crew shows up, and then the Sith shows up and attacks them, and that's the end of the episode. So,
what are some of your favorites from this episode?
I think now I was disappointed that it left us on a cliffhanger because I'm not a big fan of cliffhangers. I think it's a cheap way to get a reaction out of people. Like
this was a cheaper of the cliffhangers. This was a cheaper one.
Like, people should come back to your story because it's good, not because
you left them. You didn't answer a question.
Yeah.
That's fair.
But the build up and the moment of him like showing up
It was so
and
good.
lighting up that red lightsaber,
the float.
like
Oh, so crazy.
that was so good. That was just like
the teeth helmet.
yeah,
You want to know how I got these scars?
yeah, a little bit of that.
so
So that was just like a classic villain moment,
excellent.
and
It was excellent.
I'm so excited to watch next week's episode and see where that goes. So cliffhangers work. I just think it's cheap, and if your story's good, you don't need to do that.
Right.
But
I
don't think
I
they
agree.
needed to.
I agree.
So that was a highlight for me. I think another highlight was seeing Osha developing this like desire to rejoin the Jedi Order, and this happened pretty early in the episode when
Yeah.
Soul comes to her and confronts her because she's trying to sneak away, and she's like, "He's
So you want me
like,
to join back? You want?
yeah, like she was genuinely excited, like you're gonna let me back in."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Well, not officially," but I think that like the potential of having her come back in, I think, is a really good step in the right direction for the character.
I think so, and I mean, like I said earlier, she is driven by her independence and wanting to do her own thing, but that is out of a desire to be loved for who she is on her own, independent of her sister, which she never had as a child. Which is why I think is why she wants to be part of the Jedi, because that means she is valuable on her own, like just who she is, which I think is really powerful, and I wish they would lean a little bit more into it. Just give me more. That's kind of the theme of this episode. Give me more time. Just less walking, more doing.
So, what were your faves?
My faves. I loved our little tracker dude, which
he was super cool.
He was super cool. Also, I don't think he was tracking Kilnaka. I think he was tracking May because that's what he alerted. He didn't alert on Kilnaka's house or the location. He alerted when he saw May. So which makes more sense, because how would they have a scent from Kilnaka if he's been gone for 10 years? Unless
Wookiee scents are very strong.
That's fair. Yeah. So that's my theory, but that's okay. It's not a really big deal. It's not that big a deal. The plot progressed perfectly fine.
There's not enough shampoo in the Star Wars galaxy to keep a Wookiee clean.
Even a slightly shaved
that
one.
hair goes on for days.
The musk. Wookiee musk. Imagine what the Millennium Falcon smelled like with those two bachelors. Gross. All right. But I also really, in this episode, this really was another highlight of Chimere to me, was his costuming. The costumes in this have been spectacular and have been really detailed and have really been very, very interesting. Even Osha's and hers are very, civilian clothes. They're very run of the mill,
very like utilitarian.
Yeah, and very but they're still interesting to look at. Like they're just interesting. And then there's Chimere, and there is nothing interesting about him. He is invisible, even down to his costume and his bangs in front of his face. Like, there is nothing about him that makes him stand out, which I think even more to me is like, he's the Sith.
Yeah.
He's invisible.
Like, this is what a Sith in this era would be doing.
Because they don't want to be found out.
Yeah.
Like, that would ruin everything. So that was really interesting, just seeing that. For me, it was really interesting. I really... it was a very small moment, but it was really good. I really enjoyed the moment between Yord and Osha. It really, where Osha asks Yord to take out May because she doesn't think she can, like if it comes to that. And just like she's talking to him as a friend because they've known each other since they were kids.
Yeah.
And they're not like super close, but it was just really, it was a really good moment for Yord in him encouraging her, like, no, Soul is doing the right thing. We can trust him. But also, I understand your concerns. I will make sure you are safe. Like, he is a very good Jedi. Yeah. He would have made a great general in the Clone Wars. Like, he tends more towards the warrior, soldier kind of Jedi than the monk kind of Jedi, which seems to be a lot of the characters we've run into so far. They are more warriors than they are the monk. that the Jedi, they kind of try to straddle that line and they don't do it very well. But they just don't.
Yeah.
But I think that was a very good character developing moment for Yord, but also for Osha, of just her doubt and her really just it. I want to say love for her sister, except that I don't think it's that. I don't think May, or excuse me, I don't think Osha has that. She has a strong connection with her sister, but I don't think she can admit it, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
because
there's obvious tension there. Like in the I think it was the second episode when she had a shot at May
and she
and
like
intentionally
started
missed.
crying, yeah, because she was shaking.
Yeah.
You know, and well, at the same time, she was trained as a Jedi, so she was trained to not feel her feelings. You know,
That's true. Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
you know, she was trained in that, and so she's trying to do that, but she's not doing it well, and she knows she isn't, and so she just, I think Osha just feels like a failure and is like kind of floundering.
Yeah.
And I feel like May is probably in the same boat, but May is just more expressive. Like she is the extrovert, and you know, Osha's the introvert. She all of her things are internalized, probably because she was trained by the Jedi, who only know how to do that. They need some therapy. But you know, and then May was trained by dark power users who are like feel all the things because it drives you, you know.
Yeah.
So which is interesting because that's very much their personality. So I'm excited. I'm excited for more Yord. He's a dork, but I love him. I'm like every time he shows up, and I'm just like every time he shows up to like give his little presentation or whatever, I like kind of groan a little bit, but I'm also like, but you're really funny. Like you're really like a dork and really cute, and yeah, yeah. So that was fun, and I'm nervous for next week because Soul said, "I will tell you when this is over," which means he's gonna die.
Yeah, it's hard to see a way that he's going to make it out of this, right? Because he's the Jedi who's like at the forefront of this confrontation. We know that
Yeah.
the Jedi believe the Sith are extinct, which either like they're going to conspiracy this and cover it up, or they're
Which, you
all,
know,
which they could,
they have done before.
or
So,
they all going to die.
yeah. So that's not exciting. And it is called The Acolyte.
Yeah.
So,
This is not a show about these Jedi primarily.
yeah, so that's interesting. And yeah, so I'm a little bit nervous for our band. I feel like they're going into the belly of the beast here and don't even know it. I'm a little bit nervous. So,
Yeah.
so on the whole, we want more. We want more. We want this.
Yeah.
We want this show to give us more. We want just more. The longer episode, not so short. More, please.
Yeah.
So, more, please.
Yeah, it's tough when you only have 8 episodes and you choose to make some of them this short. It's like
it makes your audience nervous that you are not reaching your full potential.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like there's because we have a lot of questions, and it feels like you're like, no, I'm not going to answer that, and that loses your trust with your audience. So, so we still like the show. We're still watching the show. We are still fans of the show. We are very excited. I'm very excited. I want and honestly, the best thing about this show, as with every single Star Wars anything, is the characters. Like the dialogue may be clunky, the plot may miss the mark, even the structure, like the rest of it may fall to pieces, but Star Wars makes really good characters.
Yeah.
And we love them. So, you know, regardless of how the show does, all of these characters from the Acolyte they're now part of my faves. Like I'm really excited. So I'm kind of just excited to go hang out with our friends again next week. So
yeah.
Speaking of next week, we will see you next time for, I'm assuming, episode 5, Night, because the sun sets at the end of this episode. So,
if you made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us out.
Yep.
And we will catch you in the next one.
Bye.